tonight. Fox News contributor Jonathan Turley. I don't really know where to begin, Jonathan, except to say that that judge was extraordinarily patient, I thought. I found her to be defiant, combative. Frankly, that quote that she made as a candidate, that, you know, people want a DA that's not going to have sex, you know, and spend money, et cetera. I'm like, wow. Isn't that what this has evolved into?
Yeah, I actually thought the judge did a great job until the very end. I thought that he did lose control of his courtroom to Willis, that she was able to go on and on these tangents. And I think most judges would have shut her down much sooner. He was very deferential and civil, and I think that's his style. He's a very good judge. But in the end, I was surprised how much she was allowed to go off on these tangents. But what was really damaging here is the fact that both of these attorneys now stand credibly accused of filing false information with courts. That's what they're prosecuting defendants in this case for. And in the case of Mr. Wade, when they went through the interrogatories that he answered in the divorce case, most of us view those answers now as demonstrably false. So the question is, if she didn't have this personal relationship with Wade, would she really be keeping him around under this cloud? Most lead prosecutors would say, look, you need to step aside, but she's not. And both of them are now putting their own interests ahead of the case and ahead of their office. And that only compounds the ethical concerns in the case.
Yeah, well, I mean, the accusation is so severe, I don't see any other choice but that she would have to be removed from the case. And considering that we now know he did not have the best qualifications, he never tried a felony case, Jonathan. And this is one of the biggest cases ever for the state of Georgia and for the country. To me, if they want to pursue something, they've got to go back in court. Never mind the fact that I always thought the RICO statute that they used was ridiculous. What's your take?
Well, I've never been a fan of this case, and I think the RICO theory is overextended. They had to really stretch it to the breaking point to try to ensnare Donald Trump. The attorneys that pled guilty earlier notably did not plead guilty to the racketeering theory. They pled guilty to rather insular, relatively minor crimes that avoided jail time and allowed them to keep their bar licenses. So they may not be as good a set of witnesses for Willis as she thinks. And Sean, at the end of the day, it's unlikely that the court is going to dismiss this case. The question is really not just whether the court will disqualify one or both, but what is Wade and Willis still doing in this case? They are clearly hurting their case. So this isn't really their case at all, right? I mean, this is supposedly the case of Fulton County. And yet they seem to be holding it hostage to their own personal drama, which is playing out in this courtroom.
But let me gently maybe disagree with you. If they are tainted and they're the ones that put this case together, and he didn't have the qualifications, he'd never tried a felony case before, Jonathan, and she's benefiting financially with these lavish vacations that they're taking, how do you possibly stay with charges like this, knowing that the people involved in this were benefiting financially and that this was not motivated by their own personal gain? That, to me, impacts the entire case. She is the Fulton County DA. The buck should stop with her. And she is beyond tainted here. I think it's a lot worse. I'm using kind language in my view, but I don't know how this case can stand. I'm really having a hard time following you here.
Well, you know, look, I am not a fan of this case and never have been, but I'm telling you that if you look at how these types of issues have been handled in the past, they have tended not to dispense with the entire case. They've tended to remove prosecutors, and I think the odds still favor that here. But they could end up delaying this case if both of them are disqualified. This is putting the judge in a very tough position as to how he's going to proceed. But what I saw today on that stand was embarrassing. I mean, both of these attorneys adopted bizarre semantic approaches to things that were clear. You know, she said, well, yeah, I gave him a job, but I don't view him as an employee under ethics rules. I view him as an agent. And then she said, yeah, I probably did get $100 or more from him, but he probably gave me an equal or greater amount. Those are the types of finessed interpretations they would never accept as prosecutors. Keep in mind, they're prosecuting Trump over what the meaning of the word find is. They're saying that when he said you can find 11,000 votes, he was saying create them or invent them. And Trump is saying, I was just telling them to do a statewide recount because that's all the votes I need to change the outcome.
Right.
So in prosecuting him, they have very little room in terms of interpretation. But when it came to their own defenses, they were as creative as a Hollywood producer.
Yeah, well, and by the way, there was a lot of context. If you listen to that entire conversation or read the entire transcript of that call, Donald Trump's case was, I won by hundreds of thousands. I didn't win by just the 11,000 plus that would have put him over the top in Georgia. He was saying, there's votes here, there's votes here, this is what you missed here and there. Did he believe it? I think he passed a lie detector test. That's my belief. Well, Jonathan Turley. Oh, good. Yeah.
Well, and also I direct your attention to how Wade explained his answers in those interrogatories. The questions asked him if he had a sexual relationship going into 2022 at any point of his marriage or separation, and he just said, "Oh, I answered that and just assumed it only meant my marriage." And the lawyer was dumbfounded and said, "I just read you the question." So that's the level of denial we saw today.
Unbelievable. All right, Jonathan Turley, thank you tonight.